And so all of a sudden, the 70 or 80 of our young adults, like all of a sudden, there's just built-in gospel conversations that are happening because people are wanting to know, what is this? What are you guys doing? Why are you here? What are you singing? And they just get embedded in that. And all of a sudden the gospel starts going forth. And then while we were on our way over and the way back, we would always travel through the Middle East in Dubai or Abu Dhabi and end up equipping and helping the church there, training leaders in that context, which was amazing as well, just to learn. Every time you go to teach and equip, but I felt like I was learning more than what I was giving. It was such a beautiful time. Do relationships well. Obviously with your Lord, develop that intimacy with Him. Do it with whatever it takes, however you can do it. Seek Him daily. Seek Him in His Word. Pray. Open yourself and avail yourself to the Spirit of God, the presence of God for sure. And then do that with one another. Develop intimacy in relationships, in friendships, and in family. Because I feel like, man, there's so much we need that we kind of play the game of hiding. We want people to think well of us, and so we pretend, or we hide, or we put on masks. And man, I think it grieves God's heart. He's saying, are you done playing games? Are you done?
Well, welcome to the Trust Podcast. My name is Noah Uechi. I'm currently a sophomore here at the Moody Bible Institute, and I'm so glad you're joining us here today. Trust is such an essential part of ministry and leadership, whether we're serving in churches, building teams, or stepping into new roles. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And sometimes that's easier said than done, especially in challenging seasons. I'm here with our guest, Dr. Kirk Baker. Dr. Baker is a Dean of Chapel and Spiritual Formation at the Moody Bible Institute in downtown Chicago. He has degrees from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary and Moody Theological Seminary. He has years of experience in ministry, developing leaders, and investing in students. Dr. Baker, thank you so much for being here today. To start us off, could you share where you're from and how you ended up here at Moody?
Sure. Thanks, Noah. It's a joy to be here. How I ended up here is I came to seminary. So I didn't do undergrad here, did undergrad up in Canada, and this was the late 90s. Felt like I needed to come to seminary, get trained. Came here in 97 for an MA in Biblical Studies, and I was starting to do campus ministry at Uechi. And while I was doing that in seminary, I was working at Solheim, and they had me teach a few classes because I did my undergrad in kinesiology. Okay. And so one thing led to another, and they ended up hiring me on faculty after I finished my MA here. So that's what brought me here. That's what kept me here. I taught here for 19 years in the undergraduate school in the sports ministry program, and then once I finished my doctorate in spiritual formation, I moved over to applied theology and church ministry. So I served a decade or so in that department as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What brought you into ministry, or like what led you into ministry?
Yeah, I think I came to faith in Christ in my college years, in my undergraduate education, and I think because I found Christ in my college years, it gave me a love and a passion for college students, and that's when I came to seminary, I was like looking around, like, where's the closest campus, other than Moody? And so we ended up doing evangelism and discipleship at Uechi, University of Illinois, Chicago, and did that for the 2 years that I was in seminary, and began to grow and just develop a further hunger and passion for college students and sharing the gospel and discipleship. And so that was kind of what gave me that heart. And then starting teaching here, I felt like, passion and a love for campus ministry, but of a different sort, right? So not Uechi students, but Moody students, and didn't really even know I had a gift in teaching until the chair of the department called me in and asked me to teach a class or two and just observed me. And then there was a opening that opened up around the same time I was graduating from my seminary degree, and they said, hey, we've watched you for a couple of years we think you're the guy we want to hire. And I'm like, I'm not quite sure. But they knew better than I did, and stepped into that and did it for quite a while. Still doing it.
What do you currently teach here at
right
Moody?
now, this current semester I'm teaching SLIC, Spiritual Life and Community. Next semester I'll be teaching Advanced Disciple Making. I teach usually in the area of spiritual formation and discipleship, depending on what's needed.
Yeah.
So, depending on what sometimes Bob McRae or Andy Fletterer, the field chairs in those areas need, I'll step into some of those roles. Sometimes it's in the seminary. I've taught spiritual formation and soul care in the seminary as well. So it really depends on what the need is.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I read your bio, you said you had experience overseas in Vietnam, I think India,
Yes.
Canada.
Yes.
If you want to expand on
Yep.
that.
In the Middle East. Yeah. So, I did. Started off in Vietnam. Was another faculty member and I took a group of Moody students over to teach English on the South Delta of Vietnam. This was probably 15, maybe 20 years ago, and loved it. It was so great to just enter into that context. And teaching English was just an amazing avenue for the gospel.
Yeah.
And they're so hungry just to learn English, but also the freedom to teach the Bible and to talk about Christ. So that was just such a wonderful time over there. I also connected with a colleague who has a seminary over in India and did several trips training pastors over there. So pastors who were in rooted contexts that couldn't get to brick and mortar seminaries, we would take coursework to them in different regions of India. And so we go over and teach MDiv students and doctor of ministry students and help that program. So I did that several years. And then while we were on our way over and the way back, we would always travel through the Middle East in Dubai or Abu Dhabi and end up equipping and helping the church there, training leaders in that context, which was amazing as well, just to learn. Every time you go to teach and equip, but I felt like I was learning more than what I was giving. It was such a beautiful time.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What were some of your first experiences stepping into ministry and leading teams?
Yeah, I think early on here at Moody, I ended up coaching the men's volleyball team. So that was a wonderful season of 4 years where I have students, 12 to 15 students, men that I was pouring into, built-in discipleship relationships with these guys. You're traveling, you're coaching, you spend a lot of time on the bus, eating meals together. That was such a beautiful time, and really that was my first formal leadership role in an intense way. Definitely in the classroom, for sure that was the case as well. A great season was I ended up in that Department of Sports Ministry, ended up chairing the department, and I was the young faculty member. I was the one who I was probably in my late 20s. There's 5 other faculty members, and they were all in their 50s and 60s. And so even though the academic dean asked me to chair the department, I was like, I'm not sure if everyone else is on board and they're for it, then okay. But I need their trust. I need their buy-in. Otherwise, I don't want to step into this. So they were so gracious and so loving, and allowed me to lead them, which they were so much wiser beyond my years, and I was the new one, and that was a great season just to learn leadership, have great leaders around me, just to kind of continue to nurture and to help me to grow as a young leader in that role. Later, as a pastor, I was a pastor of young adults at Moody Church for 4 years in discipleship, and I had such great leaders there, lay leaders. So I oversaw probably about 80 to 100 that would attend on a Sunday morning that was after the main service. We would worship at 10 o'clock, and then at 11:30 we would go down to the basement and have an additional teaching time and more discussion and shepherding discipleship time there. And I had such great leaders that I was able to mobilize and equip, and it made my job as a leader so rewarding, and there was so many things we were able to get after because of their capability. Many of them were engineers or nurses or PhDs in neuroscience, and like just amazing leaders in their own fields, but also who loved the Lord and were able and willing and wanted to lead in the church. And so I had a team full of these leaders, these young adults, who were so sharp, so passionate, so gifted. I was just like, I just needed to unleash and allow them to run and kind of give them a little bit of direction, and they were off to the races. So it made my job, I wouldn't say easy, but just we were able to do some amazing stuff. And that was during COVID. And that was difficult because we weren't allowed to meet in the churches. So we ended up having church out in Lincoln Park under a tree. And we're like, and we would just do worship services out there, and it became an outreach thing every Sunday. And but
so cool.
So much of it was tied to those leaders. I just kind of was able to steer the ship, and they just ran with it. And I was just so glad to be part of it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. As the Dean of Chapel and Spiritual Formation, how do you pick themes for chapel and ensure that they're faithful to Moody's gospel mission? Yeah,
no, great question. A lot of prayer, a lot of collaboration. I view myself as a collaborative leader, so I just got out of a meeting with Dr. Mitchell, and so he and I have been tasked to come up with the chapel theme for next year. And so we're praying through that, we're talking through that, we're mining the scriptures for that. So it starts with just my own walk with the Lord, and him and I, he getting along with the Lord and me getting along with the Lord, and then coming together and say, okay, what's the Lord putting on our hearts? And then talking it through, sifting through different passages and ideas and themes. So it does. Sometimes I don't know, it might be, I've never written a song, but I feel like it is kind of like that, where you're kind of like, okay, Lord, what are you doing? What message are you wanting to communicate? Because it is a very important thing to be done, and we don't take it, lightly. I think that we spend a lot of time in prayer and seeking the Lord on what do you want to communicate to students? Where do you want to direct us as a student body, as faculty and staff? This upcoming year, and so I won't reveal yet where we're going because it's not fully crystallized yet. But that's a little bit of the process, and I put a lot of stock in trusting other dear brothers and sisters who are on the same journey. Like, hey, let's collaborate, let's talk, let's sharpen one another, let's push back when we need to do that. But it's through those relational pieces.
No, this year's chapel theme, presence. From Acts 2:28.
Yes.
I remember going on the student leadership retreat, and all the messages, sermons by Dr. Washington was about being in God's presence, resting in His presence. Yes. And that's been really beneficial in my spiritual walk with the Lord.
Good. No, I'm so glad. So glad.
How do you consistently maintain trust with teams for chapel on a weekly basis?
Yeah, through relationship. Through and those develop over time. For sure. So with my worship leaders, with my staff, with ITS, with all the different counter people who serve behind the scenes or up front, it is developing those relationships. And some of them, you have stronger relationships and more robust relationships than others.
For sure.
But a lot of it's trust and getting to know them getting to know you. And just kind of walking alongside each other. So there's that, but there's also the intentionality of having to work through things. So specifically with my staff, we meet on a regular basis weekly. We're talking through on logistical pieces, things like attendance, things like worship, things, and we're debriefing on those things as well. Things that we plan and put a lot of effort in, and like, how did that go, or what do we need to do better, or what didn't go well? And so in that crucible, you get to know one another, right? And you get to know gifts and abilities, and that's why it's so good to walk with one another. Gautam is my part-time professional who I don't, I don't view him as an employee. I view him as a brother. And so we've known each other for past 3 years, and there's such a sweetness there of us knowing one another in our abilities and our jobs and our roles and what needs to be done, but just such a respect and honor, a love and affection for one another, and trust that is developed, that you can't kind of manufacture that, but it develops over time. But it's really tied to each of you being willing to go there and to not just be employee, but like a brother in Christ, and a willingness. There's many times that our professional conversations bleeds over into personal conversations and back and forth, which is a beautiful thing.
What steps do you take to create an atmosphere of trust on a new team, or if someone's joining your team, how do you make that trust?
Yeah, I think there's different things you can do. I think obviously rallying around a goal or an objective, like leading worship in chapel, or executing a good chapel service, or planning missions conference, pieces, or things like that. But I think it's also doing life, having meals with one another, and having people into my home, and just the hospitality over a cup of coffee at Joe's. Like, I think there's many spaces that develop that trust, and it comes, but then also allowing your heart to be seen, what you really care about, where your convictions lie, and that comes up through the work, through the ministry, that people see what you really care about, what you're really passionate about, or what you feel deeply about, and what you don't. Right? So allowing yourself to be known and them to know you. And I think that's maybe a good way to kind of capture it, is like, allowing yourself to be known. And I think trust is developed there on a team, that when people allow themselves to be really known, and you seek to know one another, I think it just enhances the good work that can be done, and often excellence that bubbles up. Like, sometimes you see, like, why are things done so well? I think sometimes it is the team behind it, and what's developed in that team that's somehow being put forth as an artifact, or a piece, or a film, or a worship service, that, like, it comes through people. It comes through God through the people. That there's trust in they're with their Lord, but there's also trust with one another, and how that team kind of gels and comes together.
For you, where's the line between trusting your teams in their work and stepping in yourself?
Yeah, I put a lot of trust in my team. Maybe I trust them too much, and I do that intentionally, because I want them to fail sometimes, and for me to have to step in may not always be the best thing. It might be I need to let them make mistakes. I need to let them, and maybe this comes through my parenting with my sons, is they're not going to learn if I'm always there to catch them. But no, they need to get skin their knee or elbow or fall down, and okay, I'm not going to do that again, because this is what happens. I think there's a level of that. That said, there are times when the leader needs to step in, and having discernment and wisdom on when that point is. And sometimes, like, as a leader, you're not always like, is this the time? Is that the moment that you step in? But you don't want things to unravel where, there's going to be things that happen that that you want to avoid, or that that's too costly, we can't allow it to go to that level. So I think that's part of it, is having that discernment, and to know when do I need to step in. A lot of it's tied to competency, right? You want a level of competency to occur, but you don't want it. You don't want things to just unravel. So there's just like okay. Now we've disintegrated to a level, there's no competency whatsoever. But there's a level of like, okay, what's that threshold where, like, okay, there's the level, you can make mistakes, there's some grace there, but once it gets down to, okay, we need to modify and change things. So a lot of it's reading, understanding, interpreting those situations, those moments.
Could you describe a time when you're on a thriving team? Maybe that's the time when you were young adults at the pastor of young adults at
Mhm,
Moody Church.
mhm.
But what made that team experience so positive and successful?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that is a good example. I think it is them. I think it comes down to knowing that they have a pastor that loves them, that cares about them, that trusts them, that is wanting to mobilize them and equip them, and like that isn't there to do all the stuff for them, but like, no, like we're together following Christ.
Yeah.
And then them responding, right? Because you can be a leader and you can be leading well, but the people aren't following, or they're not responding for whatever reason. But I think when you see that, when you see like, oh, there's a hunger there to follow and to lead their groups well, that's exciting. And I think there begins a dynamic of them in seeing each other's roles. Like, hey, here's my role, here's their role. And that relationship, it all comes back to that relationship and trust. That know that, hey, I'm here when you need me. I'm here to support. I'm here to consult. I'm here to help when you need it. But I'm going to let you run with it, right? And so knowing those spaces is important, and seeing them, the light come on, and them getting a glimpse of what God is doing through them. I'll give you an example. When we were having these services out in Lincoln Park during COVID, because we weren't able to be in buildings in Cook County, we would do these worship services, and I'd bring a message and preach, and some of our leaders would have guitars and instruments, and we'd have worship, and all of a sudden there's a group gathering around on a Sunday morning because they're just walking their dog or playing frisbee in the park, and all of a sudden there's music, and they come over, and all of a sudden there's evangelistic opportunities, right? And so all of a sudden, the 70 or 80 of our young adults, like all of a sudden there's just built-in gospel conversations that are happening because people are wanting to know, what is this? What are you guys doing? Why are you here? What are you singing? And they just get embedded in that, and all of a sudden the gospel starts going forth. But it's not them just standing there twiddling their thumbs. They're relationally engaging with non-believers, welcoming them in to the worship service, welcoming them in to hear the Word of God preached, the gospel preached, and then often it would happen where we'd be going to lunch with some of them afterwards, or we'd be going over in the afternoon playing beach volleyball at North Avenue Beach. So there's just these things that would ensue that the Lord knew and allowed to develop, but it was because faithful believers were able to see what He was doing and just responded in faith. And very little of it was me orchestrating. A lot of it was just kind of like, oh, we're setting the table, and then the Lord's kind of, He's developing what happens. There were several Sundays where that would just occur, and I'm like, oh my, we couldn't have crafted a better outreach opportunity than what the Lord brought through COVID, which we were all belly aching, like, why can't we be in the church? And like, well, the Lord, He knew we needed to be outside under a tree in Lincoln Park because the gospel needed to go forth.
We're such a world-class city, and so many dark places here in the city, and that's a great example of the gospel going forth from a church where, it's really cool. Now going into maintaining trust, but how can you, or how have you, maybe this has happened to you, maintain trust with the people you're leading when there are issues going on behind the scenes?
I think maintaining trust, there's got to be a level of willingness to share hard things. There's got to be a willingness to risk, like, can I share this with somebody? Yeah, you've got to be able to. And if it's not with this person, it's got to be with another person. You've got to have people in your corner that you can disclose the tough things of life. And sometimes that's in a work context, or in a ministry context, or just in a personal context. And you could just tease out the scenario in each of those. But there's got to be a willingness, I like to kind of live dangerously, so to speak, unto the Lord, like that I'm confessing those difficult things to the Lord, but that, as you think of, 1 John 1:9, you've got to confess it to one another. It doesn't have to be everybody, but at least one other human being that, hey, you need to know this. And that builds trust. It builds honesty. It builds truth. It builds reality. It allows the gospel to be appropriated in that moment. It allows sometimes hearts to be knit together, right? In those moments of confession, those moments of honesty, where not that we're sweeping sin under the rug, but we're identifying and building trust because oh yeah, I can identify with that because I sin too. I struggle too. There's tough moments in my life too and you begin to see that. Often the brokenness that surfaces in our own lives, in whatever context, is sometimes the thing that welds friendships and relationships together. And sometimes that's what I see happening in good leadership opportunities. That am I willing to kind of be real with somebody, to say, hey, I'm having a tough day, or I'm struggling with this. And it doesn't mean you disclose everything to everybody, but there's got to be a couple of people that know. Yeah.
Thank you. How would you approach people on your pastoral staff when you're maybe at Moody Church who have different opinions about church practices? How do you maintain trust in each other when God seems to be saying different things to each of you? Yeah. Or it could be here as well at the Moody Bible Institute.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. You got to remain a learner, right? None of us have it all figured out, right? We've got to. One of the things that I pray for our faculty and our administration is that we stay academically humble, right? That great scholars with doctorates and written books and do amazing things for the kingdom of God. But we've got to remain, have a humble heart and a humble posture to each other. And if that's not there, then the Lord's really going to be limited in what He can do through a group of people. So there's got to be that, just to be a learner. So whether it's a church context, and in your situation that you mentioned, there's always issues that come up. There's always issues that we disagree on. There's issues that I think you need to discern to what are those issues. There's some that are very gospel, the deity of Christ and the authority of God's word and things like that. They're okay, these are central issues, and you've got to navigate those with grace, but also with truth. And you can't water it down, and you can't negate that. There's going to be other issues that are peripheral issues, and that you learn and you listen and you hear and you consider and say, hey, there's probably something here I can learn and listen to. And that hope that it would be reciprocated, that they would learn and listen to your conviction. But it would be a dialogical dynamic there that builds trust and respect. Even at the end of that day, with that issue, if you walk out of the room and you still disagree, that's fine. Yeah. But there's respect, there's honor, there's trust there. You maintain personhood and value the personhood, and that the argument or the issue doesn't become the main thing, but you respect one another in being created in the image of God.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that one. I think being humble, as you said, is very important. Yeah. Otherwise, it might seem a little off-centered or self-centered to others. But going into the next question, what does the Bible have to say about trust?
Yeah, there's a lot. And the more I was thinking through this, so many times when the Bible speaks, or authors in the Bible speak of trust, it's trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Don't put your trust in man. He'll let you down. And I think that's just a good theme, to take in a ministry. We will disappoint one another. We are broken, sinful human beings, and we don't have to wait very long until we disappoint one another. For sure. But trust in the Lord. And I think that's a theme. One of the texts I was looking at in Proverbs 29:25, it says, the fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. Whoever trusts in the Lord. So just that's where we put all our eggs. Hey, at the end of the day, I hope I have brothers and sisters around me that I can trust and that are going to be with me in tough times and stressful times, and when the storms of life come, I need brothers and sisters around me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I put my trust in God, right? And He's the one. And so I think that's it. And not that we are surprised when brothers and sisters let us down, right? I think that's, I think we own it when we do disappoint others and we break trust. I think that's another piece that we need to really consider of like, okay, there's going to be times that I do break trust. I'm not trustworthy. Own that. Confess that. Repent of that and say, how do I walk in a different way, Lord? How do I follow you being a trustworthy Lord and King? Let me follow your pattern, and that there be fewer and fewer times where I break trust.
If you've ever broken trust with someone, how have you rebuilt that trust?
Yeah.
Or how have you seen others rebuild trust, maybe with you?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. It's hard to talk about this and not talk about your own family, right? Because I think those most intimate relationships are the ones that are most significant and important. And I think of I have two sons, one who's 17 and one who's 21, and discipling them growing up, a lot of it, is like, you want them to see and watch your life and instruction, and there's good conversations around the dinner table and prayer and time in the Word and stuff like that. But sometimes, I think the most profound times that I look in their lives is when they've seen Dad make mistakes, right? Like when I've broken trust with their mom, right? When I've said a harsh word or I've sinned in some way. What do I do, right? And they're there present in that moment because they're in our family. That's the pivotal moment that they see me taking hold of the gospel and to say, okay, to confess, to say, honey, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? And confess to the Lord and say, hey, and to these boys to say, hey, what you just saw me do, that wasn't right. I'm confessing to your mom because I said a harsh word or I said it in a harsh way or whatever the situation was. And for them to see that there's the gospel. There's the gospel at work. And that's how I think trust is built. They need to see that their dad is a sinner, right? That I sin. If they don't, then I'm just playing a game. But they need to see that I am a sinner, but what do I do when I sin? That I confess it, do I acknowledge it, that I repent of it, that I receive Christ's forgiveness, that I receive the balm that the Lord is in the gospel to pick me up, dust me off, set me on my way, to say, hey, here's the way in which to walk now. To own that, because that's going to model for them what they need to do because it's not going to be very long until they sin, right? And they make a mistake and they break trust with their Lord or with another human being, and they develop a pattern. Am I going to dismiss it? They're going to pretend it didn't happen? Am I going to try to justify it in a worldly sense? Or am I going to own it and confess it and learn from it and have God teach me through that? And through that, rebuilding trust with another human being and reestablishing trust with the Lord.
Wow. Do you have, since you have been serving in ministry for a long time, what are some principles or key takeaways about leadership or trust that you personally have found and used in your life?
Yeah. I think just watching other people who do it well, right? I love that's the beauty of being at Moody Bible Institute. There's so many godly people around here that you can just watch. I love watching Dr. Sisk, our provost. I've known him for 20 years, and just to observe him, watch him, spend time with him, learn from him. There's oodles of colleagues I could point to on that, but being around people who are trustworthy and who model it well, to say, hey, I want to watch how they walk their walk with the Lord. Yeah. And I also want to watch them, how they do it with other human beings, right? How they love God and how they love others. And how trust is at the center of all that. Yeah. And then to the same thing that I mentioned about my kids, what do they do when it's broken, right? Because you be with those folks a bit and you be with them long enough, you're going to see them make mistakes. And what do they do when they make mistakes? Are they humble? Are they repentant? Are they contrite? Do they turn to the Lord and they turn and model what the Lord has modeled for us? in that. So that's it, and it takes humility. I think that's the thing that I see in our Lord, right? Him embodying humility, of taking on human flesh, him dying on a cross. I mean, the whole storyline of his life and the gospel is embodied humility. And I think that is so key to establishing trust, in whether it's in leadership or in a family or both, or in a teaching or pastoring context. Man, there's such need for humility. And when you see it lived out, it's so attractive because it's so not the norm in the world, right? I mean, there's very little that you see when you watch TV or you watch celebrities. I'm like, oh my, it's so countercultural. It's so different, but it's so attractive. It welcomes you in, and it makes a connection and say, oh yeah, I'm like that. When someone shows you, like, here's the real me, I'm like, yeah, I can identify with that. I can identify with brokenness, and I need others in front of me to model for me. How do I model? How do I live with humility? How do I live to rebuild trust when I've broken it? Man, it seems so basic, but man, it's such an important lesson.
Yeah.
So I think, thinking of people heading out into ministry, stay humble, stay a good listener, be a learner, a lifelong learner. Surround yourself with godly people who are way smarter and way more godly than you, right? Yeah. Seek them out in the church and spend time with them and pick their brains and walk with them and learn from them and let the Lord use them in your life. And then as you acquire whatever you're acquiring, pour it out into others, right? That you're loving on people and those who are following you, maybe.
What's something like if you were 18 years old, entering college, what's something that you could have wished that you've known, or you could have told yourself back then?
Yeah, that's good. You don't know yourself as well as you think you do. Self-awareness is one of those things that, I just turned 53 and I think I'm still developing my self-awareness. But I feel like, the stereotype, unfortunately, is that, oh yeah, I've got it all figured out, I know. Talk to an 18-year-old and they got the world by the tail and they got more confidence than they know what to do with, often. Not everyone, but often. To say, okay, humble yourself before the Lord, and to say, okay, Lord, help examine my heart. Help me to be aware of who I am, who you created me to be. What are the areas, what are my blind spots? What am I not seeing? And part of that comes through putting good friends around you who you give access to speak truth to you, to tell you when you're being a knucklehead, when you're not doing this, when you're sinning. I think we need that because on our own, we can easily go a while thinking that we're all that, and we need the grace of God to kind of point that out, to expose us a little bit.
This is our final question, but what is your advice for graduating seniors that have been trained and been equipped for ministry here at the Moody Bible Institute as they enter the next season of their life, whether that's church ministry, a nonprofit, or education, and leading teams and sharing the gospel with others?
Yeah, no, great question. Man, there's a lot. Do relationships well. Obviously with your Lord. Develop that intimacy with Him. Do it with whatever it takes, however you can do it. Seek Him daily. Seek Him in His Word. Pray. Open yourself and avail yourself to the Spirit of God, the presence of God for sure. And then do that with one another. Develop intimacy in relationships, in friendships, and in family. Because I feel like, man, there's so much we need that we kind of play the game of hiding. We want people to think well of us, and so we pretend, or we hide, or we put on masks. And man, I think it grieves God's heart. He's saying, Are you done playing games? Are you done? And because I think as we think of those closest to us, when we think of those relationships closest to us, usually they're closest because we've been through stuff together. You know, we've been through crisis, we've been through turmoil, the storms of life. We've been there for one another and seen each other at our worsts. We need people like that, and we need to develop relationships and understand what develops intimacy like that. That's it. In the church, we need leaders who know how to relate to people, not just preach, not just exegete, not just do this, that, or the other. We need people who can relate to the people in the pews and who are going to be there for weddings and funerals and newborn babies and all the stages of life when you're at their worst and also on the mountaintops. We need that. And so the gospel came through a relationship, and we need to continue to move out in relationship. Jesus was always moving out in relationship. He was always leaning out. He got away with his Father in those intimate moments to be alone, but then he was always moving out in relationships. We have that same responsibility. Yes, get alone with God, hone that intimacy with Him, worship Him, commune with Him, but then there's a moment where okay, I switch gears and now I'm moving out compelled by the Spirit, compelled by what I've encountered with God in private. Now I'm moving into those relationships.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Baker, for coming on the Trust Talk show today. And it was I loved all of your insights on the topic of trust within the church, your leadership, and the academic context. Thank you to everyone listening. And to learn more about Moody Bible Institute, please go to moody.edu. I hope you have a blessed Thanksgiving.
Great. Thanks, Noah.